I'd been working at this routine for months. Every night after my shift at the diner, I'd shove the wobbly tables to the side of our cramped little living room, hook up that second-hand Bluetooth speaker I bought off a yard sale, and practice the same set of steps until my legs were begging me to stop. This wasn't just some school recital. No, this was my one shot, the audition that could land me a full scholarship at a performing arts college 2 states away. If I pulled it off, I'd finally get out of this house, away from them, and maybe never look back. But in my family, the moment I wanted something for myself, it was like tossing chum into the water. They smelled it and went straight for the cruelty. That morning, I woke up early. The whole place already stank of burnt toast and stale cigarette smoke. Mom was at the kitchen table, glued to her phone, nails clicking against her chipped mug like a metronome. She didn't even glance at me. Dad sat across from her, eyes locked on some loud sports recap, a half-empty beer sweating in his hand, and it was barely 8 in the morning. "You're up early," Mom muttered, sounding more bored than curious. "I have to be," I answered, keeping my tone flat. "The recital's today." That got Dad's attention, though not in a way I wanted. His head turned, that familiar half-smirk creeping across his face. It was the look he always got before he decided to cut me down. "Oh yeah," he sneered, "your little spinning act. You gonna twirl around for strangers who won't even remember your name?" "It's not just a show, Dad," I said carefully. "It's an audition. If I get in, if..." He cut me off sharp, like he always did. "Stop wasting our time with things that'll never happen." Mom chuckled under her breath, like he'd just said something wise. I swallowed my words and bit my tongue. Around here, survival meant keeping quiet and staying in motion. I made myself a piece of toast, then slipped back into my room. On the closet door hung the dress I'd been waiting months to wear, a midnight blue number that skimmed the knees, chiffon flowing like water whenever I turned. I'd bought it with tip money and hidden it until today. Sliding it on, I pulled my hair into a sleek bun, careful not to snag the fabric. For a second, staring into the mirror, I almost looked like someone who belonged up on a real stage. I should have known better than to walk out of my room looking like that. Dad's eyes landed on me right away. He set his beer down, tilted his head, and gave a slow whistle, not the flattering kind. Well, well," he said, dragging it out. "Look who's trying to play dress up, like you're somebody that matters." "It's for the recital," I muttered, adjusting the bun at the back of my head. "I've got to be there early to warm up." He leaned forward, grinning. "So what, you're just gonna go embarrass yourself in front of strangers? At least your legs still work, for now." I didn't even register what he meant until I tried to step past him toward the door. 1 second I was moving, the next his boot shot out, sweeping both my legs out from under me. My knee slammed against the floor with a crack that sent pain ripping straight up my thigh. I gasped, grabbing at the couch to stop myself from going all the way down. Dad leaned back, grinning like some playground bully. "Now it matches your life," he said. "Broken." Mom didn't even flinch. She took a sip of coffee and shrugged. "Maybe you can limp through it," she said casually. "They might hand out sympathy points." The room spun. The humiliation hit harder than the pain. To them, none of it mattered, not the months of practice, not the chance at a new life, not my one shot at something bigger. I forced myself to stand, every step sharp with pain, and walked out the door without a word. But inside, something was boiling. It wasn't just hurt. It was darker, sharper. Right then, I knew one thing for sure: whatever happened next, I was done letting them dictate how my story ended. The walk to the community center felt endless, my right knee screaming with every step. By the time I reached the glass doors, I could already see the other dancers warming up inside, parents lined neatly against the walls, clutching bouquets and cameras, chatting in low voices. I limped inside with my small dance bag clutched against me. The receptionist gave me a once-over, her eyes flicking to my limp. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Just tripped," I lied, forcing a smile. "I'm fine." I wasn't fine. My leg felt like it was swelling under the skin, every stretch grinding against bone. But I knew if I admitted what really happened, they'd yank me off the roster. And after all I'd endured, there was no chance I was letting that happen. Backstage was a blur of sequins, hairspray, and nervous energy. Music leaked from someone's phone while dancers stretched and fixed costumes. My friend Sophia spotted me adjusting the wrap around my knee. Her eyes widened. "Whoa, what happened?" she whispered. "Home," I muttered. That one word was enough. Her face softened into pity and quiet anger, but she didn't ask for more. The clock ticked down. One by one, the dancers floated onto the stage, soaking up the polite applause that filled the hall. My name was last on the list, the closer. When the stagehand finally called my name, I walked out into the light. The crowd looked even bigger than I remembered during rehearsals, all those faces blurring together into one sea of eyes. But I spotted them right away, my parents, slouched in the very back row. No clapping. No smiles. Dad sat there with his arms crossed, looking like he'd been dragged to the dentist. Mom didn't even look up, too busy tapping away on her phone. The music started, and I forced myself into motion. Every spin sent a jolt of pain ripping through my knee, but I pushed harder, grinding past the ache, refusing to let it show. The audience wasn't here for my pain. They came for grace, precision, beauty, and I was determined to give them that, even if it cost me everything. Halfway through, the pain spiked so sharply I almost collapsed. I heard a gasp ripple through the hall, louder than the music for a split second. I steadied myself, forced my body to keep moving, and carried it through until the final note faded. I struck my last pose, holding it even though my knee was shaking and my lungs were burning. Then the applause hit. Stronger, louder than I expected. Some people even got to their feet. I bowed, swallowing the knot in my throat, telling myself I'd done it. But then his voice cut through. My father, loud enough to be heard across the hall. Guess the limp was part of the act. A few heads turned in his direction. Heat shot up my face. Mom laughed right beside him, shaking her head like I was some sad little joke. I held my bow a moment longer, then walked off stage as calmly as I could, even though I was burning inside. In the dressing room, I sat down in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection looking back at me. My makeup had smudged, sweat dripped down my temples, but I didn't see failure. I saw someone who had just taken the hit of her life and was still standing. Barely, but standing. That's when the scholarship judge came in. Tall woman, silver hair, clipboard in hand. She gave me a kind smile. "You have beautiful technique," she said. "But I could tell you were in pain. If you'd like, I can arrange a private audition for you. Just say the word." Her kindness nearly cracked me wide open. I thanked her quietly, voice tight, and took the business card she handed me. When I left the community center, the sun was already sinking. My parents leaned against the car, waiting. I walked toward them slowly, clutching my dance bag. "Well," Dad said, smirking, "that was something. Guess you proved me wrong, you can still dance with a bum leg." "Not good, but still." Mom's smirk matched his. "Good thing you don't have to worry about that college anymore. Saves us all the headache." That's when it hit me. They didn't just expect me to fail, they wanted it. My failure was their safety net, the leash that kept me small, kept me home, kept me under their thumb. I got into the back seat without saying a word. But my thoughts weren't on their insults anymore. They were on that card tucked in my bag, and on the spark of a new plan that had started burning the second I realized this wasn't about dance anymore. It was about never letting them break me again. 2 weeks went by before I really saw them again. Not because they were busy, but because I slipped into spaces where they'd never think to look. That card from the judge wasn't just a courtesy. I called her the very next morning, voice steady, like nothing could shake me. She set up a private audition at a small studio 2 towns over. No audience. No whispers. No laughter from the back row. And I danced like my life depended on it. Every spin sharper, every landing cleaner, every ounce of rage and hope bleeding out in each move. When I finished, the silver-haired judge didn't clap. She just walked toward me with a look I'll never forget. "You're in," she said simply. I didn't ask about tuition. I didn't care. Those 2 words were enough. But leaving wasn't the only plan. Walking away would have let them think they'd won, that they'd driven me off. No, I wanted them to watch me go, to see me walk on the very legs my father tried to take from me, and know they would never touch me again. So I started small. Quiet. At home, I became unreadable. No reaction to Dad muttering, "Guess you're limping for attention now." No anger when Mom told relatives on speakerphone, "She's wasting her time with that silly dance thing." Just silence. Behind the scenes, I moved my life out piece by piece. Costumes, savings jar, framed photos, all slipped away without them noticing. And of course, they didn't. They never noticed. Then came the night I'd been waiting for, dinner with their friends, the people they were always desperate to impress. I dressed neatly, not for them, but for the role I needed to play. Halfway through the meal, Dad smirked at me across the table. "So, you done with that little hobby yet, or should we go ahead and shop for wheelchairs?" The table laughed awkwardly, not sure if it was a joke or just cruelty. I smiled. "Actually, I got accepted on a full scholarship. I'm moving next week." Silence dropped like a stone. Forks froze midair. Mom's smile faltered, cracking. "A scholarship? For you?" "Yeah," I said evenly. "They called me exceptional. Guess they didn't get the memo about me being a waste of time." I let it linger. Then I pulled an envelope from my bag and slid it across the table. Inside was a copy of my acceptance letter and an invitation to my first national competition, one they'd only see if they bought VIP tickets months in advance. "Front row seats," I told them softly. "If you can afford them." Dad's jaw clenched. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I leaned forward just enough so the words landed hard. "I know I am." I stood, thanked their friends for dinner, and left. That night, I didn't go home. I went straight to Maya's, where my packed bags were already waiting. The calls came. The texts too. First angry. Then desperate. Then nothing. Months later, at the national competition, I saw them again. They hadn't bought front row tickets. They stood way in the back of the auditorium, far enough that they couldn't touch the moment. I danced anyway, every step deliberate, every movement sharp, each turn a reminder of what they could never take from me. When the standing ovation came, I didn't glance at the crowd. I looked straight at them. Their faces were pale, tight, smaller than I'd ever seen them. I bowed, lifted my head, and turned my back, the same way they had done to me so many times before. Then I walked forward, carried farther than they ever thought I'd go.